and welcome to another video. So in this one I'm going to be doing a walkthrough of the murder mystery that we did for our dog party. Now I want to start this off by saying that obviously this is spoilers for it. Basically I'm going to walk through the entire thing. I'm going to tell you the murderer. I'm going to go through all of it. And another thing I want to get out there right away is that because really, I think the only people who would be watching this is people who are going to be who are looking to host a party like this. I've never done one before, never been to one, so I was going in blind on this, and I kind of did it like board game style almost. I did it like a game. So instead of it being throughout the whole night, like walking around finding clues, trying to trick people, like I didn't know how to do that. I don't have the brain power for that. So I did it like board game style. I had these character boxes. You got your clues in it, and like we kind of went around and like played it for a while until it was kind of like a race to just figure out what it was and who the murderer was. And so it went really well. I'm very happy with how it turned out. Now I did a behind the scenes video which I posted a couple days ago, and that kind of goes into more of like how I did the character boxes and everything. But this is already going to be long enough, so I want to keep this strictly a run-through of the clues and a little bit of the thought process behind the clues. Now, one important thing I need to say, I did not completely come up with this. In fact, the important information I did not come up with. I go into this in the backstory, or in the behind-the-scenes video, but basically I found a free template, and it sounded like it was one that someone wrote, not one they bought and then like uploaded. It sounded like it was one someone wrote, and so I was using that, and then I couldn't have the party until like way later, and by the time I got to party time I only had a couple screenshots and the site was taken down. So I don't know the original person to credit them. If somehow you know who the original person was and like can show me that it was them, you know, obviously I will put in the description, you know, who it is. I want to give credit to that, but I don't know, because I can't find anything on it. I have searched and searched and searched because I did not want to write a murder mystery party. I wanted to use this one. But I had already set up the character and everything, or set up everything, so it was interesting. But this is the information I got. This is what I posted in the party. It was a thing for it to say. It says, "You are a guest at an upscale casino in Las Vegas. You have very rare tickets to the best night of excitement on the Strip, with an Elvis impersonator. It's 6:30 and everyone has gathered into the swanky casino bar for the star performer, the best of all time. As the show starts, a gunshot echoes throughout the bar, the curtain comes up and the performer goes down. The casino's bar door slams shut and everyone in the bar is now a suspect. You are requested at the party to determine which of our friends is the murderer. Throughout the night, you can talk to any of the suspects to see who they are and determine if they are the murderer. One person will be the murderer. If you are not the murderer, you can try and trick everyone into believing that you are, or you can simply hunt for the murderer. I will be giving everyone playing a short character backstory. Some of the character backstories will contain clues, which you must tell everyone at the party. Piece together enough clues, and you may find the murderer." Now, like I said, I did not do any of the like tricking, things like that, and the person, you didn't know if you were the murderer or not the way I did it. Now, another thing too, this is a flaw in the plan. I kind of want to get all the flaws out right away. I didn't know how many people were coming. So I planned from 5 to 12. But the thing is, all 12 characters had important things. I only had 7 people show up, which meant that at the end of each round, I had to read the other clues from the other characters. So that kind of put an awkward part in it. This works if it's like a small friend party, you know, where you can have those awkward things. But if you're doing something big where there's a lot of pressure, I'd suggest just buying one, honestly. But I didn't have the money to. So I'm going to go through. Oh, and the other information I had was I had the actual, like, murder, like the stuff that I was supposed to know, which was that the Elvis impersonator was having an affair with the vocal coach, and they are both males, but the vocal coach was married, and the vocal coach stole a gun from the casino the week before from another person, and at this week shot the Elvis impersonator. And yeah, I don't remember the exact details of it. I just knew the general thing of it. There were some characters and some clues that I got. There was a reporter that said that Elvis was having an affair with someone who was married. Didn't say anything about, you know, if it was a guy or a girl. I got that there was an escort who said that Elvis hired her to come to something like with him, but he was not interested in taking things to the next step. And then they had a character called a gun nut, which said that your gun was stolen at the performance last week. And I changed that character into a super fan, but and I changed the way the reporter was. Like, the reporter wasn't an actual character, it comes in later. But that's all the information I had. Everything else I put together. So again, the most important information is what I got from them. So again, the whole basis of this I did not come up with. But I then had to fill in the rest of the characters. And like I said, I don't know how to do this, so I did it like board game style. But yeah, so I had a very hard time coming up with this because I watched a whole series, which I will link the channel that has that series. That channel helped me a lot. I have all these papers on how I did it, like coming up with different characters. And because I wanted, there was going to be key clues each round. And I'll get into who the characters were. So I knew for sure I was going to be able to have 2 guys, and I knew I needed to have 2 guys because the Elvis impersonator was gay. And so I had Cass Eno. One of the videos recommended having like funny names or like punny names. And this was the casino owner. I'll put the spelling on the screen to kind of, you know, make it more fun. And then I had Sing a Lot, which is the vocal coach. And then I made some characters that could go either way gender-wise depending on who came. I had Devin Drugs, which is a dealer. I had Sam Sampson, who was the cousin of the Elvis impersonator. And then I had Olive You, who was a super fan. And then for females, I had Marry Me, who was a bride-to-be. I had Tammy Travell, who's a tourist. I had Evie Eno, who's a backup singer, and Cass Eno's wife. And then I had Diva Darling, who was an escort. I had Sophie Stop, who was security for the casino. I had Lily Livingston, who was best friends with Carrie Carlston, who was the other best friend of the 2. Now, I had some key characters that I was like, I want people at the party to actually be playing these characters. And that was Cass, you know, Sing a Lot, Olive You, Diva Darling, Evie Eno, and then I guess 6, and Sophie Stop. I really wanted them to be people who were actually playing. And I got lucky enough that I had a 7th person because I really wanted Marry Me to be playing as well. Those were the main ones that I was like, I really want people to be playing because those are the key characters in like Suspicion throughout the whole thing. Now, I didn't tell anyone that they were or weren't the murderer. I said you don't know. That way they didn't lose a guess, because if I told everyone they weren't the murderer, then obviously one of them is, and then they're never going to guess themselves, so they don't have a chance to win. Because I did like a $10 gas kit card for whoever figured it out. And so the way I told them I did it, because I made these character boxes, which again I walked through in that, but basically in the character boxes I had 4 envelopes for each character. I only made 7 boxes because I knew there was going to be 7 people at that point. I had the whole thing written before, but I made the character boxes like the night before the party. And at that point I was like, I know who's coming. And I had a name tag with the character's name written on it. I had a little notebook and a pen, which I just got, you know, those 3 things from the dollar store. And that was the character box. And so I'll walk through the whole thing, but basically I told everyone, I was like, you can't open your character box until we actually start playing. And when you open it, you know, you can put your name tag on and stuff, but don't open any envelopes until I tell you to. So then we went into round 1, which was meet your character. And now at this point, I'm going to start just reading through everything. That's basically how I'm going to do this. I don't know the best way to set this up, but I'm just going to read through basically how we did for the party. Okay, so the way I did this, I'm just going to walk through like we did there. So round 1, I said, everyone open your envelopes and read your first thing, but don't let anyone around you see it. Now, there was really no reason for that. I just wanted to kind of up the suspicion because I said some people might have a note that says, don't read this out loud. No one had a note that said that. I just threw it in there. But what we did was all of the cards, we then went in a circle and I had people just read off what they had. So I will do that. I'm going to start with the most important characters. I'll kind of go in the order we did for that. So we'll start with Cass Eno, who again is the casino owner. Now this was played by my sister's boyfriend Jacob. He played Cass. He did really good at it. It was really funny. So Cass, I did the envelopes. It says Cass Eno, round 1, meet your character. Now all of them are set up that way except for it has their character's name. So they would take out this little card, has a 1, and on the other side it says Cass Eno, round 1, character info at the top. And then he has the clue that says, you are the casino owner, you are married to Evie Eno, who is another player. You have 1 kid and 2 dogs and work at the casino every night. Now there were some things that I needed to throw in. We needed to know who was married. We needed to know how often someone was at the casino. I believe those were the main things. Oh, and who carried a gun, but this one doesn't say anything. But I didn't want it to be obvious that those were important, so I threw in kids they had, pets they had, and if they worked somewhere. Because I didn't want it to be obvious, like, oh, you need this information, you know, that kind of thing. So I just threw those extra things in. So that is Cass's first clue. And then we'll go with Evie Eno, who was played by my sister. And Evie's first clue is, you are a backup singer for the Elvis impersonator. You work with the vocal coach, sing a lot, and come to every show in hopes to perform. You are married to Cass Eno and have 1 kid and 2 dogs. You don't have a job. And my sister pointed out the flaw in this. Technically being the backup singer is a job, but later it just got all funny. So it doesn't have another job, it should say. So that is Evie's first clue. And again, as you can tell, like the meet your character, this is just the backup information to give you a baseline of who the characters are. And then I'm mentally like envisioning the order of the table. So we'll just go with All of You, who is played by my friend Olivia. But All of You is meant to be a pun on I Love You because it's a super fan. Now this is the character that I replaced the gun nut with. Olive's first clue is, you are a super fan of the Elvis impersonator. You run a fan club for him and come to every week's show to see him. You work at a shooting range and have a license to carry. You have a daughter and no pets. So I guess I should break it down a little more. It says you come to every week's show to see him. So far all of these characters come every week, which is an important detail. Then you work at a shooting range, that's not important, but you have a license to carry. That is important. And then you have a daughter and no pets. Not important. So again, for this, we are looking for if they have a license to carry, if they are married, which this one, it didn't say they were, and how often they're there. But the thing is, the people playing don't know what's important yet. Then the next character is Sing a Lot, and this was played by my friend Nick, or my friend Kiana's boyfriend Nick. Now, obviously, if there are couples, it's fun to kind of give them the characters that are couples, like Cass and Evie. But out of the other characters that we're playing, I didn't have any, so I just, went with the other guy at the party, was Nick, and so I made him sing because I needed Sing to be a guy. So Sing a Lot says, you are a well-known vocal coach who works with the Elvis impersonator and his backup singer, Evie Eno. You and your husband attend every week to watch the performance. You have no kids or pets. Now this, obviously we know at this point that Sing is the murderer. The people playing don't, but we know. I was debating on if I said you and your husband, because Sing is the only gay character in this. And now obviously if you say you and your husband, that kind of draws the attention to this as something important. At least in this day and age, it's, if it's specified, it usually implies it's important. The difference here is at the end of this whole thing, if you make it to round 4, you're kind of left with 2 characters. And in this case, one we know is straight and one we know is gay. Like, if you follow all the clues correctly with this, you end up with Cass and Singh being the suspects, which are both males. It depends on how you want to play it. If you want it to be, we narrowed it down to one person, then you can write you and your husband. If you want it narrowed down to two, and then whoever guesses first, then you can put both, and then just see, because maybe they're secretly gay. You know, maybe Cass is secretly gay, but is married. It's up to you. But I ended up putting you and your husband, because I didn't know whether to do it or not. So again, the important information here is you attend every week to watch. Husband, so married, and it doesn't say anything about carrying a gun. Now, I'm not going to walk through what's important each one, because again, this is going to take forever. So the next character, I'm going to try to kind of keep it going, is Marry Me. And this was played by my friend Kiana. It says, you are a bride-to-be out with your friends for your bachelorette party. You heard good things about this casino and decided to come. You have a babysitter watching the kid and cat, and you work at a clothing store. Now we're going to go on to Sophie Stop, which was played by my mother. You are the head of security for the casino. You work every night and have a license to carry. You are married with one dog and 2 kids. So next we have Diva Darling, who was played by my mom's coworker. And that is all of the people that we had playing. So you are an escort who attends the casino every night to pick up clients. You have a license to carry. You have 3 kids with different guys and a pet bunny. You work as a waitress during the day. And now these characters are the ones I was just kind of reading off, which again made it a little awkward, but oh well. So we have Devin Drugs. You are a drug dealer who has never been to this casino before, but you came to see the Elvis impersonator to make a deal. You have no kids or pets and don't have another job. And then next we have Tammy Travell. You are a tourist who is here for the first time with your husband. You have no kids or pets, so you spend a lot of time traveling. You sell artwork online. And then we have Sam Sampson. You are the Elvis impersonator's cousin who is visiting from out of state for the first time to see him perform. You have 1 cat, 3 kids, and work as a tech nerd. Now, if you can think of a tech nerd job, feel free to put one in, but I was in a hurry trying to write these, so I just wrote tech nerd. Which kind of gives it away that these things aren't important, but we're going to go with it. So, it worked. I mean, no one said I was good at this, okay? Next we have Carrie Carlston. You took your best friend, Lily Livingston, out for a night away from the stress of the world and decided to check out this casino for the first time. You have 3 kids, a dog, and a goldfish. You work in an office. And then Lily Livingston. You and your best friend, Carrie Carlston, came here for the first time for a fun girls' night out. This is your first time out since having your baby. You are a stay-at-home mom with 2 kids and no pets. Your husband is at home watching them. Sorry if you can hear Eddie whining in the background. He likes to talk. If I can get this in there. So we have now gone through all of the clues for the first round. So at this point I had everyone kind of just talk about the clues, see if they wanted to say anything, and this is the point where people could guess. I think I allowed 3 guesses at this point because really they don't have enough information. And now the guesses are who did it, how they did it, and why they did it. We already knew at this point that the Elvis impersonator was shot. So that kind of, people will think that fills in the how, but there's more to it when we know that the gun is stolen. So out of round 1, so the suspicion is kind of drawn to the people who have guns. So that is all of you, the super fan, and that is Diva Darling, the escort, and Sophie Stop, the security guard. So the focus is kind of drawn to them. But we really don't have a lot of information. So then we go to round 2. But your first clue for Cass is when the bride-to-be ordered, she never asked for a discount or mentioned it was her bachelorette party like people normally did. Now, like I said, a lot of these are to try to bring suspicion to other people because you don't want to just make it obvious what it is, you know, and who did it. So then Evie's second clue is tonight was supposed to be your day to perform, but the Elvis impersonator ended up not calling in sick. So this kind of makes it sound like you're a little upset, like bring some suspicion to Mary, bring some suspicion to Evie, like, you know, we're kind of throwing things all over the place here. And then Olive's round 2 is you lost your gun at last week's performance. So that is the big clue. And then Sing's clue is the Elvis impersonator almost canceled today due to a sore throat, but he ended up showing up. And then Mary's, you noticed that the best friends, Lily and Carrie, were acting weird and were very nosy about who was around. And then Sophie, you met everyone at the door when you checked their IDs. So again, that's the security guard. And then Divas, you tried talking to the Elvis impersonator's cousin Sam, but they seemed distracted. And then Devon's, the Elvis impersonator was supposed to meet you before the show, but bailed and never did. And Tammy's, the drug dealer was trying to rob you before the show, but your husband came back in time to scare them off. And then Sam's clue, you tried to come out last week, but the capacity was met, so you extended your stay to come tonight. And then Carrie's, you recognize that the Elvis impersonator used to be a school teacher for one of your kids before getting fired. And then Lily's, you asked the girls at the bachelorette party how they knew each other, but they all gave different answers and were quiet. So in this round, suspicion is all over the place. Like, I wanted to just throw everyone, like, all out there. Some things are completely pointless. Some ideas I kind of built on as time went on. Like, I kind of built a lot of suspicion against Mary for a long time. Because the way I wanted it to work is I wanted people to suspect people, but then as more clues came, they kind of started thinking other people. And then at the end, being like, here we go. So there's lots of things being thrown around. Lots of confusion. The important clue is that Olive's gun was stolen last week. So, what this is supposed to do is then point out that it could be anyone. But if you catch on to last week, that means that it's someone who attends the club or the casino regularly, or at least was there last week. So, all of the people who it was their first time there, if you caught on to that, they are not suspects anymore. So that means that Devon, Sam, Mary, Tammy, Lily, and Carrie all are not suspects anymore. So Cass, Sing, Olive, Evie, Diva, and Sophie are all still suspects. At least if you're following this. So now we go into round 3. Which again, this is the round that it was guessed at because things kind of narrowed down a little more. This was a very important round. I called this one Social Hour. So the way I kind of prefaced this, I was like, so, you know, we've been in the casino for a long time. Things have been shut down. The fear is kind of starting to die down because nothing else has happened. And so I kind of set up that all these people were just sitting at a table together at the casino, and so they kind of started getting up and walking around and talking to other people trying to figure out what was going on. And so when everyone came back to the table, again, this is all in the story, obviously no one actually left our table, but when you came back, you picked up this information from someone else. So none of the, so a lot of this is from characters who aren't even characters, which this is how I fit the reporter in. And by the way, a lot of these characters I brought in, there's so many confidentiality things that are broken. Like, I have like a lawyer and a doctor who both are saying things they should not be saying. But, you know, that doesn't matter in a game. But anyway, so Cass's clue is you spoke to a lawyer who said the Elvis impersonator recently changed his will and cut some people out of it. They didn't say who. Now, A lot of these I kind of just threw something out there that could sound sketchy, and this worked really well. Like, I didn't have a plan for how these things would fit together or what would happen, but people kind of filled them in themselves. This is one that I honestly didn't necessarily expect it to throw people off as much as it did, but there was a couple people who really followed this train of thought, like the will, because then they were thinking Sam, they were thinking there's some family things that come up later, like they were really following this. So then Evie's social hour clue is you spoke to another client of Singh's who said the vocal coach didn't want to keep working with the Elvis impersonator. Now that was kind of my way of trying to turn people away from thinking it was Singh, like thinking, well, obviously they're not the person because they don't want to work with them anymore. Like, you know, you'd think they'd want to be with them. Or it could be they didn't like them. Because that was one thing I learned, is that you kind of want to make it so the person who was killed isn't really likable, or a lot of people don't like them, because that kind of draws suspicion to everyone. Like, there's a lot of things here that just make it look sketchy. So then Olive's is you spoke to a fan of the backup singer who said Evie was mad that the Elvis impersonator showed up, and so were her fans. And then Singh's clue is you spoke to a lawyer who said the Elvis impersonator just filed for divorce from his wife. So that one, if you were going like, if you did figure out like the sexuality route, or like later when it comes to that, you could think one of two ways. You could either think, well, he was married to a woman, so he's not gay. Or you could think, well, he's leaving his wife because he's not interested in women. Could go either way. And then Mary's. You spoke to a reporter who had been doing a story on the Elvis impersonator who said, I found out the Elvis impersonator was having an affair with someone else who was married. He didn't know who yet. So now I have Sophie's. You spoke to another casino worker who said, I overheard Cass saying that the Elvis impersonator was costing him more money than he was making him. So now we have Divas. You spoke to a client of yours who said, I recognize Mary. She definitely didn't seem engaged when we partied together the other week. So that kind of draws more suspicion of Mary, which I will say the main thought processes people followed, at least in my party, where people followed the will, because more is going to come up in here. They followed Mary being suspicious, like there was a lot towards that. And people weren't actually, I don't think, seriously suspicious of Singh. Like, jokes were being thrown around, but then once things got narrowed down, it kind of naturally turned into that, oh, that was you kind of thing. But at this point, a lot of the suspicion was on Mary, and even though Mary wasn't married, like, a lot of that was kind of thrown around. But also the way that the clue said someone else who was married, that kind of clicked them into, oh, it doesn't say a woman. So they kind of really, like I said, they pretty much figured it out in round 3, and then they actually figured it out. So they really started putting it together here. But Devon's is, you spoke to a staff member who said, the Elvis impersonator was awful to have. He was so demanding and rude to the staff. So now to Tammy. Thankfully I didn't have to read all of these at the party because it's a lot. But anyway, he spoke to a reporter who has been doing a story on the Elvis impersonator who said, tonight the Elvis impersonator was going to expose his big secret and tell me a name. And then it says, talk to other people to see if they know what secret the reporter is referencing. Now, that was, I didn't know if this would come up first or if Mary's would come up first, but Mary's was already read first. So then Sam's is, you called your aunt, and then in parentheses it says, the Elvis impersonator's mom, who said, I knew something was wrong with him and that something bad would happen. So that kind of threw some suspicion on Sam, because people were thinking, knew something bad would happen, the will changed, like, you know, that really threw people on a thing. Then Carrie's, that also kind of went to the drug dealer path, like they're like, you know, he's not doing things with his wife, he's getting a divorce, or with his life, he's getting a divorce, he's doing drugs, all this stuff. It was really entertaining watching everyone. So Carrie's is, you spoke to your husband on the phone who said, I'm watching the news right now, the police are there and they're going to go in soon, be safe. And then Lily's, you spoke to a doctor who was there who said, I could tell he wasn't doing good. If this didn't happen, I wouldn't give him long, which obviously, realistically, that's not a thing a doctor could say or would be able to say. But, so yeah, that really started tripping some people up. They're thinking Will, they're thinking something changed with Sam, and then his mom knew something was up. That was really interesting because I just kind of threw those clues in there, like as random things I didn't really know. I kind of connected them, but I didn't make a big connection to all of those, but some people were really following that path. And so at this point, when people were talking, it was solved. My sister, who played Evie, she actually guessed that she was having the affair with the Elvis impersonator and that she was cheating on Cass, which was interesting because I wasn't expecting people to think that Evie was the married person that Elvis was having an affair with. I was expecting them to think Evie was the murderer because Cass was having the affair. But I said that that was incorrect. But she said that she stole the gun and stuff, though. And then my friend Kiana, who was playing Mary, she guessed, and she actually guessed that that Sing and Evie, like, he was having an affair with both of them. And that was interesting. And I was like, well, it's close enough. You know, she guessed the gun was stolen, guessed the affair, and all that stuff. And so I gave the win to her. And then I was like, let's read through the final ones, and then I'll kind of go into a little more. Now, one flaw in this, I am going to read the final clues. But one thing is, you don't get the exact details. But if you really look into it, like, I was looking for, you know, Sing was having the affair and killed Elvis because of that, or because of he was going to expose it. But the whole, like, written out thing that it was, if I remember correctly, it was that something along the lines of, like, Sing was, or the vocal coach was going to leave his husband or his wife, whatever it was in the original scenario, for the Elvis impersonator, but wasn't actually going to. And then Elvis got upset or something like that, and then the vocal coach killed Elvis to hide the affair. But I don't remember what the original thing was, because like I said, I lost the screenshot. I only had part of it. So the way I did it was like, Elvis left his wife for Sing and was going to expose the relationship because Sing wasn't leaving his husband. And, you know, he was telling this reporter, he's like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to, like, you know, tonight's the night. I'm going to tell everyone what's going on. And Sing was like, that can't happen. So he shot him. And I wasn't expecting everyone to get that in depth. You know, it's up to you when you're playing how in depth you want people to go for the win. But I would specify that at the beginning. Like I told people, I was like, you have to have the who, you have to have the how, you have to have the why. And I was like, I'm not going to tell you which one's wrong out of the three. If you get it wrong, I'm just going to tell you it's wrong. I'm not going to tell you what's right. I'm not going to tell you what's wrong. And, because in that case, they could just start guessing a bunch of different people, you know? And so you got to just figure out from that. But if you are going really specific, I would tell your group, like, I'm looking for the exact answer. Like, you need to have all of the details correctly. Otherwise, they're going to throw out something general. They could have the right thing, but then everyone's going to think it's wrong because it's not in-depth. You know, I would just specify. But anyway, so at that point, it was guessed, and I was happy with that. You know, we made it all the way through round 3. And so it was really interesting because then when we went through round 4, they're like, oh, that would have made me think this. Or, you know, when we got to the escort clue, they're like, yup, I would have gotten it from that for sure. So round 3, the main clue was the affair. At least that's the main clue we know. Obviously, the people playing usually wouldn't know it's the main clue. They picked up on it here, but that's the main clue. So that is supposed to make you think, okay, it is someone who is married, which then would draw your attention to Cass. It would draw your attention to Sing, Tammy, Evie, Sophie, Lily, and Carrie. But then if you also cross that with it had to be someone who's a regular, that brings you to Cass, Sing, Evie, and Sophie. So we're really starting to narrow it down here. So we are going to go into the final round's clues. We have Cass's final clue, and I just titled this round Final Clue. This one, I gave the little like thing. I was like, this is just your personal relation to the Elvis impersonator or your personal connection. You had the Elvis impersonator signed with a contract to perform for you for 4 years. You were 2 years into it. And then Evie's final clue was you used to do duets with the Elvis impersonator, but he cut you from his act a few months ago. So then Olive's is no matter how hard you tried, the Elvis impersonator never paid any attention to you through all the years. So then we have Sing's final clue, which is you skipped this week's appointment with the Elvis impersonator due to a sore throat. Now, let me just say, I kind of walked into a bad joke here on accident. So obviously I put the Elvis impersonator at a sore throat because that would be the only thing that could really stop him from singing. But at this point, like I said with my group, the gay jokes had already started. And so even before they were fully guessing, like earlier when they were saying like calling it sick and stuff, like they were making sore throats. They're like, yeah, Sing, you gave him a sore throat, didn't you? And I was like, guys. And so we were losing it. We were laughing so hard. It was the dumbest jokes. Like I said, those jokes are actually what brought them to the conclusion. If everyone didn't have such a dirty mind in my group, it probably would have taken them longer to figure this out. But since everyone's brains are just in the gutter all the time, our group got there pretty quick. But anyway, so now we're gonna go to Mary's. You have never heard of this performer before, but you have loved Elvis ever since you were a kid. So a lot of these clues, they're just, I needed something to throw in. And then Sophie's, you pulled a crazy fan off of the Elvis impersonator a year ago, and he has been super nice to you ever since. So now this was supposed to kind of be like, oh, Sophie's married. Sophie is the only staff member that Elvis impersonator was nice to. Sophie helped the Elvis impersonator, you know, like that kind of thing. And also if you were still going with Sophie carries a gun though, you know, maybe Sophie was the married person in the affair and all that stuff. Because if people weren't following the gay route, I didn't want to narrow it down to 2 guys. You know, I kind of wanted the possibility to be open to Sophie as well, like I said. And then we have, nope. We have Divas. Not that the order really matters, but still. The Elvis impersonator hired you to accompany him to an event last week. When you tried to take things to the next step, he wasn't interested. So this is like the smoking gun clue, as it was called in that series I watched. This is the big one. This is the final thing that tells you, if you're following it, that the Elvis impersonator is gay. And if people weren't already following that track, if people were stuck by the time all the clues were read, like then you could kind of lean people in the direction of like, with any of the clues, like, okay, well, like, what would it mean if like these people got along with them, or, you know, like, why wouldn't the vocal coach want to work with him anymore, or like, why would he maybe not be interested? You know, like you could pick from any of the clues, or even from the beginning, like, well, why would the bridal party act like they don't know each other, like something like that. Like maybe she's not actually getting married, maybe she's just sketching, you know, all this random stuff. You could kind of like lead things on to kind of help people figure it out, but in this case they picked up on it right away. So then Devin's is you were the Elvis impersonator's dealer, but he was thinking about quitting. Tammy's is you have been wanting to see this Elvis impersonator perform, which is why you guys traveled here. Sam's is the Elvis impersonator loved performing ever since he was a kid and couldn't imagine life without performing. Carrie's is you remembered that the parents at the school didn't like the Elvis impersonator when he was there. And then Lily's final clue is you saw the Elvis impersonator and the security guard hanging out a lot before the show. The final clue, the important one, is the escort's clue, which leads you to think he's gay. But if you didn't get there, we started this round and the suspicion is on Cass and Sing, which are 2 married males, and then Evie and Sophie, which are 2 married females. So it's 50-50. So if you're thinking gay, 2 suspects are out. If you're thinking straight, 2 suspects are out. So it depends on if you catch that clue. If you catch that clue, that leads you to gay, which leads you to the 2. And then depending on how you wrote Sing's clue, you know, Sing we in this case know is gay, which instantly points us to sing. Now if not, then you have to play the whoever guesses first on the 50-50. There could be Cass and he's married but is actually gay, or it could be the other way around, or it could be sing. So with that, I hope you enjoyed. I know this is probably a very long video. I know this one isn't the best, but honestly, feel free to use it. You know, that's why I'm making this video. And also I just spent way too much time to only put one night, like, put all of it into one night, so I'm making a video out of it too. If you are making one, I have the video of the decorations I got, I have the video of the behind the scenes, I have this, and in the behind the scenes video, I put like pictures and stuff from the party. Like I said, I don't really have any like content for it, but I have the pictures and stuff from it. And it was really fun. I definitely suggest you do this, whether you use my template, whether you use someone else's, whether it's a dog party, human party, I don't care. I recommend you do it. It's really fun. Whether you buy a template, use a free one, it doesn't matter. But this one's available if you want to use it. It'll probably be a pain in the butt to try to get everything, but I don't know, it's fun. I had a lot of fun with it. So thank you for watching. Happy investigating. Bye!